Welcome back to Continental Club, where we discuss the hottest topics in European football. Your topics, you send them in, we answer them. Thank you very much for getting your questions in this week. If you want to do so next week, get at us on Twitter, get in the comments below, comment, please. Thank you very much, and like the video. But before we start with Sweeter Dams's question, let's briefly touch upon England's performance against Costa Rica last night. Euro Football Daily, one English team versus a South American team. It makes sense, doesn't it? But I think worth revisiting. What did you think, Michael McLovin?
I only actually saw the second half because my mate came round and he was planting one of his cucumbers in my garden. So that sounds awful, actually.
Metaphorical and physical.
That sounds awful, actually. Now he's been in Japan. He brought over some seeds, some cucumber seeds. So he was gave me a pot, and
I'm not surprised at all.
Yeah, it was good, mate. I'm not a gardener myself, but I'm going to try it this summer. Hopefully, get a couple of Japanese cucumbers.
Is that like part of your board at home? Is that like part of your board at home? Like, you know, like is your mum? She's like, you can stay, Michael, as long as you're growing some form of veg in the garden.
As long as you're helping us be self-sufficient as a family. So that took up my time for the first half, and. But the second half, I thought England were all right. I thought we gave the ball away a lot, which wasn't great, so I was a little bit peeved about that. But like Joe was saying before we were starting, I think we expended a lot of energy in the first half. But in the second half, I thought Ruben Loftus-Cheek was really positive. A couple of really nice dribbles from him. I thought, he looked good. I also thought Danny Rose looked good as well, which is really good to see. He hasn't played much football this season. Obviously, this interview came out yesterday about how he's been suffering from depression and how just his family life he's just basically had a really shit year. So the fact that he got that off his chest and also put in a really positive performance yesterday, I think you've got to give it to the man. Hopefully we'll be seeing some of him during the World Cup. Don't know whether he'll be first choice, but I thought it was all right. You can never really take so much from a friendly, I feel. And what I did see wasn't a hugely cohesive performance, but I know you were quite impressed in the first half, right?
Yeah, I was really impressed in the first half. One of the most refreshing England performances I've seen in years. Obviously, you've got to take it with a pinch of salt because it's a friendly going into the World Cup. I remember us beating Germany that last minute, Eric Dyer header, and everybody getting a little bit excited. But this performance, this performance was a completely different England performance to what I'm used to. It was high energy, it was youthful, high pressing, confidence on the ball. Everybody looked like they were enjoying themselves out there. There wasn't much pressure. I know you're going to talk about Marcus Rashford looked released, but I just enjoyed the intensity of us off the ball as much as I did on the ball. When Costa Rica had the ball, we were all over them like a rash. It was mainly led by a few players. One of them being Fabian Delph, incredibly impressive for me. And I actually think he's in line potentially to start now for England in central midfield at the World Cup. Particularly given Gareth Southgate's comments before the game yesterday where he said, I'm going to be playing one defensive midfielder in this system and it's up to Eric Dyer and Jordan Henderson to battle for that position. Because I think a lot of us thought, how's he going to fit Jordan Henderson and Dyer into the same team? And I'm delighted that he's only going to pick one of them and we're going to go slightly more attacking. So to see Fabian Delph and Ruben Loftus-Cheek a little bit more freedom was really exciting for me. Ruben Loftus-Cheek carried the ball really well. I think he's got a little bit more to do in the final third with his work in and around the box, but he's obviously an exciting talent. And Fabian Delph, the ability to play at 8, 6 and 4 is another thing he talked about yesterday. I think he said he was trying to play 30 minutes in each role for Southgate. And that was a great performance from a player who's played left wing back for almost the entire season. It adds a nice bit of balance to have a left footer in that midfield, I think. Just adds something different. I think a nice midfield balance of Fabian Delph, Jordan Henderson and Dele Alli. I think it's got a nice bit of balance. It's got Delph's intensity, it's got Jordan Henderson's sitting slightly deeper, distributing from deep. This nonsense about, he only passes the ball sideways. I think he's really grown out of that this year and improved as a footballer. And then Dele Alli obviously offers that creativeness in and around the box that I think England have been missing for a long time. So I'm really excited about our England midfield now that we're not going to be just playing Jordan Henderson and Eric Dyer in there.
Yeah, and I think Fabian Delph as that sort of auxiliary midfielder also enables the defenders to push out, because I was a little bit sceptical about England playing 3 at the back, but as a result it means we don't have to play 2 defensive midfielders, right? Fabian Delph in a lot of instances last night was sort of covering for Harry Maguire and Phil Jones, who were really advanced along with the fullbacks, and when you sort of overload one wing, It enabled us to get a lot of crosses in. It enabled us to, when we lost the ball, enact a decent pressing system.
Really
there was always two men sort of closing Gamboa, who had a terrible night. What a shift that was, marking Marcus Rashford in that form, and given a little bit more of a creative license to be creative than at club level. And he enjoyed it, and he was all over the pitch, wasn't he? Predominantly on that kind of left wing, but obviously he took his goal from the other side, and what a finish it was. Until we scored that second goal, though, I was thinking, for all England's good work, we do need to develop a habit of killing these teams off, because there was a 10-15 minute period in the second half where Costa Rica started the game pretty well.
Yeah, I think the one thing that will help us kill those teams off in and around the area is actually Harry Kane. I think one of Harry Kane's killer instincts is that ability to turn and shoot on a sixpence, and it always goes through the defender's legs. I think maybe that's something Vardy's not quite got in the same manner.
Yeah, I actually think that despite his form, which is it's improved incrementally at club level, he does have a fair bit of pressure on him this tournament to perform, because he's not excelled yet in an England shirt, and his scoring record isn't great, and I think he needs to translate some club form into the international level, especially now he's been given the captaincy. It's a lot of the time it is kind of it's not as an important a role as people make out, especially the English press. But at the minute, Gareth Southgate is sort of defined by what's not happened as of yet. A lot of the ITV pundits last night were saying, we're very surprised, the preparation feels very solid, things are very calm, nothing's cropped up in the press, but this is how it should be. And I think that's one owing to the professionalism in this current crop of players. I think that's improved massively in the last 15, 20 years. There was an air of celebrity about the golden generation as well, and that's not necessarily an issue here. Rooney's not in the press, Gareth Southgate hasn't shagged Ulrika Johnson, so we're all right on that front. So I'll be wary of heaping too much praise on Southgate at this point for bringing down the average age of the squad and sort of going about preparation in a professional manner, because that's what other top nations have been doing for a number of years. But yeah, good sounds, and why not be positive? And the sort of players seem to have a collective attitude, and they seem to have a high expectation of one another. That's always, you always hear that sound come out of the camp, don't they? Oh, there's a good vibe. But I think with less ego and a younger average age, there is actually probably reason to believe that this time around.
Definitely, I think as well. For me, I think I'll be chuffed if England gets to the quarters, but there's every chance that we could go out in the second round. But even if that is the case, I think just the squad in its current state and the things you were just saying there, Chris, I think just bodes well for the long term for England, in terms of setting a blueprint for how we prepare for tournaments in the future as well. I think that's something that I think Gareth Southgate definitely has in mind.
There's been a kind of short-termism to the last few squads, squeezing the last drop of form out of a Gerrard or a Lampard or a Rooney.
Let's stick Rooney defensive midfield.
And it's just not really worked, has it? But that was England for you.
Yeah.
So on to Sweet Adams' question, which is very topical. We discussed that on a couple of other shows, but I'd like to tell you thoughts, lads. Is not taking Sané the dumbest decision at this year's World Cup? And his season's looked a little bit something like this. We're all pretty familiar with his numbers, but let's revisit them just to give you guys some context. Leroy Sané registered 14 goals and 19 assists in all competitions, more than any other German winger. Julian Brandt, who effectively took his place in this selection, got 12 goals and 7 assists for Leverkusen, and Marco Reus, who wasn't part of that 2014 winning World Cup squad, got 7 goals and 1 assist, sort of came into a decent purple patch, let's say, towards the end of the season, but started the season injured again, didn't he? And Julian Draxler, 5 goals and 10 assists, but of course captain Germany to that Confederations Cup victory. Were you surprised, Michael? Do you think, despite the fact he's not performed in a Germany shirt, would you have still taken him?
Definitely. I think I definitely would have taken him. Yeah, for sure. I think I'm assuming we'll all agree on this, but I just think for the fact, and I did actually touch upon this in transfer review yesterday, that I think any international team would want to have Leroy Sané in the squad, even if he's not starting, just purely for the fact that he can more than a lot of young attacking players come on and make a really decisive difference in the game.
Yeah.
If it's not going against, if the game's going against you, I think I was using the example, say of Germany, a 2-1 down in the quarter-final with 20 minutes to go. Like Leroy Sané is almost like the perfect player you'd want to bring on.
Yeah.
Like he can cut through a tired defence so easily, in a
Nightmare
way that.
combination of speed, skill.
Yeah, and
Grace,
directness.
poise.
There's so many superlatives we can throw out there, but the simple fact is that he's maybe the best young winger in Europe. Like,
Yeah, I think
to not take him to the World Cup, I just think is criminal. I mean, Julian Brandt is clearly talented. Marco Reus obviously has experience, and Draxler I definitely would take, but like I would have taken him instead of Brandt for sure.
I feel like Marco Reus is like an IOU. Like I feel like it sounds so stupid, but I struggle to see how Marco Reus warrants a place in this squad over Sané. I know that we're comparing Brandt as probably the player that's been brought in, and Joachim Low has said if it's a 100-metre sprint, it would have been a photo finish between Brandt and Sané. But for me, Marco Reus's position in the squad is almost more questionable than Julian Brandt's. I mean, he obviously has had a series of serious injuries, didn't go to the 2014 World Cup, and it's almost, I don't know, maybe it's just conspiracy, but it's almost like Joachim Low went, I didn't take you to 2014 because of the injury.
Yeah.
I said I'd give you a chance at 2018 if it came around, here's your spot. Because Leroy Sané, let's face it, has been a more explosive, dynamic and creative winger than Marco Reus this season.
Yeah, I mean, Joachim Löw, what is he? He's taken into 5 semi-finals at least now, and he's someone that hasn't really been seduced by any offers at club level. So giving someone like Marco Reus a last hurrah, if he suffers one more injury, his career's arguably over at this point, is it's probably a wise decision. It sends a positive message out to the young footballers that maybe, like Leroy Sané, that didn't make this squad, that here is a manager who values loyalty. So there is merits to that attitude, I guess. But yeah, if you're basing it on performance, Leroy Sané has been very unfortunate to miss out. And I think Sebastian Rudy probably very fortunate to make the squad as well. Obviously, most of the Bayern boys make it, don't they? But he's been in and out of the side because Tolisso has been incredible in his debut season in Germany.
I actually don't think it's the dumbest decision, though. Just going back to Sweetiger Dam's question, I actually think not taking Radian Nainggolan in favour of taking a midfield of Yuri Tielemans, Axel Witsel, Marouane Fellaini, behind obviously the likes of KDB, who had to.
You have Moussa Dembele as well.
It is a really puzzling decision.
Yeah.
It's not as if Radian Nainggolan has played 10 games this season and injury hit. He's got 30 appearances under his belt. He's got 300 Serie A caps now, and it's Roberto Martinez's decision to leave him on the bench in favour of Marouane Fellaini, who, let's face it, is a B option for Manchester United. Yeah. When we've got a full fit midfield, Marouane Fellaini does not start for Manchester United.
And Marouane Fellaini has also been injured for almost the whole season as well.
That's like the most puzzling.
The only thing you can say is
that
Nainggolan's quite a combustible character, and he's and he smokes and he drinks, and it makes him very easy to criticise. But obviously, Eusebio Di Francesco thinks he's professional enough to start 30+ games. So maybe that's not.
These are the kind of characters that we want at a World Cup as well. Drinkers, smokers.
And the only game, one of the games I went to the Euros in France, it was Belgium versus Sweden in Nice. He was the best player on the pitch by far and scored in howitzer. And the game finished 1-0. So exactly the sort of play you want to
and let's face it, as combustible as Radian Nainggolan is off the pitch, Marouane Fellaini is just as combustible on the pitch. I would argue that Marouane Fellaini is not the player I want in a World Cup semi-final in terms of his elbows flying everywhere. Teams that play Manchester United,
it's very risky. It's very risky.
Fellaini. When Fellaini is on the ball or running past them, they are hitting the deck left, right and centre when Fellaini's arm's up here. And then Fellaini turns, what have I done? Nothing. And he tends to get yellow cards and red cards a lot because of that. So as much as Nainggolan's a danger off it, Marouane's on it.
What about some of the other choices then? We have Alvaro Morata, Fabregas, Alonso for Spain.
I think Morata should have gone, definitely.
I
think definitely Morata should have gone despite him having troubles in the second half of the season. I just think he adds something that the other forwards don't.
But what does he add that Diego Costa doesn't?
Aerial ability.
I'm not so sure. I don't think Spain are going to play for aerial ability though.
Not necessarily, but it's a good option to have. I don't know. I think who are the other strikers they've got? Obviously, Diego Costa should definitely go.
I think
Aspas
plays quite a lot for them.
They don't really have another out-and-out striker.
Yeah.
I guess Rodrigo, and he's tended to favour La Liga players. I was surprised that Sergio Roberto didn't make the cut though, because he's had a really good season at Barca.
Yeah,
I mean, Lopetegui has kind of quietly modernised Spain, hasn't he? And it's going to be a difficult transition from that crop of players beforehand. A lot of these players, like your Ramoses, your Busquets, will be 34 by the time the next tournament comes round. So this, a lot of them have probably kept their places on merit, but also they'll be hoping that they can sort of squeeze every last drop out of this current crop of players. I would have taken Morata as well. He played at various points in qualification without a striker, didn't he? A lot of the time, Isco was the central striker, although Morata scored 5 in qualification, which is the most along with Isco, I believe. Yeah. So Morata, I think, even based on numbers during qualification, there's quite a decent, well-rounded argument to be put forward for him being included.
I think there should be a certain amount of loyalty in that sense as well. That if you've contributed a significant amount to the qualification, then you should go. I mean,
but then also you've got to remember a lot of the qualification happened pre-Christmas, so post-Christmas he's barely had a sniff on the pitch, has he? So
yeah, for sure. But I think
taking a player that's
he's still worried about his back as well.
Yeah, I think that's a confidence issue though, and that's something that I think a good international manager can change. Like he's obviously just been a bit out of sorts at Chelsea. He's had the fans on his back.
I'm not overly surprised
I think that can
Marcos
change
Alonso,
in an international setup.
Because Marcos Alonso is very sort of formation specific, isn't he? While he's got like 10 goals or 11 goals for Chelsea this season, which is obviously incredible from left back, and he has that sort of ability to take a free kick. He's not the best defensive fullback in a one-on-one situation.
And they're not going to play 3 at the back.
Who's the kid they signed? Emerson Palmieri, the kid they signed from Roma. You're listening to a really interesting podcast from StatsBomb, and they were saying that Palmieri is formidable one-on-one in a defensive situation, and that's why they think Chelsea have bought him, whereas Marcos Alonso very good going forward. But if he comes up against a sort of diminutive winger, there's occasions where he struggles.
I think potentially Mauro Icardi as well. You briefly touched on him. I think he is a little bit unlucky to miss out Mauro Icardi. I think if any other team in the world, for sure, he would get into, but that Argentina front line it's a pure freak moment of time, isn't it?
In the league, he's hitting a Harry Kane-like consistency, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's literally a freak-like area, and I know that people will say, he should have gone over Higuain. Higuain's a bottler. Higuain bottles the big games, but for me, I don't know. I probably would have taken Higuain as well. I don't know who you can sacrifice in that front line to make room for Icardi.
Yeah. You've got to look at the bigger picture as a manager. I mean, is Icardi because from the outside looking in, ostensibly that looks to be the case. I mean, could quite easily be wrong. We don't have that intimate knowledge, do we? But he's only got 4 caps, and he's been scoring 20+ goals for the last 4 or 5 years.
Because he's fallen out with everybody at every level.
So I'm not overly sure. McCubbs, any last thoughts before we move on to the next question?
No, I think we've summed it up.
There you
go.
go.
Well there. So yeah,
from the horse's mouth, McHorse. Bin. Last question then, because we droned on a bit there, comes from Sam Obertekers, and he's asked, who has done the best bit of transfer business pre-World Cup, and how will it impact their season? Now, the big news today is that Nabil Fekir looks to have signed for Liverpool for around £54 million, which is sensational business if it's true. Joe, what have you read? Because I know you're always, I see you on Twitter, early doors.
Yeah, a little bit.
You love a bit of paper.
So I personally think, just come back to the question, that Liverpool have done the best business. You can't disagree with it. They're running away with it at the moment in terms of their midfield options. Because we'll include Keita in this because he didn't arrive last summer, right? And we know what an option he is. Incredible signing last summer for, I think, what was it, 58 million?
So I thought it was a bit more actually. Maybe 70 million euros.
But anyway, this summer, Fabinho, what was he, 38 million rising to 40 odd, 45?
45 I think, yeah.
So that's a really interesting move. I think they needed that defensive screen. I know that we've talked about and bigged up Jordan Henderson as an improving player this summer and definitely got better under Jurgen Klopp last season, but Fabinho adds a different option, doesn't he? He's a slightly more exciting and dynamic player than
I think
Jordan
I
Henderson.
read Fabinho in the last 3 seasons has scored / assisted double digits every season and put in 100 tackles.
I think you'd have to take that with a pinch of salt, though, because he takes every Monaco penalty.
Yeah, but still.
But still, goal's a goal, isn't it? And then obviously today, the news that Nabil Fekir has agreed to join Liverpool. In fact, by the time this goes out, it might have been announced. For Paul Joyce, who is a really, really respectable Liverpool journalist and gets almost every transfer
Respected
correct.
or respectable?
Respected, sorry.
Good guys.
£48.4 million, the
Yeah.
Fekir deal, he says, and £4 million in Champions League-related add-ons, which is just an incredible bit of business for such a young talent. We've spoken loads about Fekir on the show before and on Sunday Vibes, but for me, this is potentially the signing of the summer. Nabil Fekir for £48 million.
Well,
people were talking about him. People were talking about him as potentially moving for 70, 75 million.
Yeah.
They've got such good business dealings going on behind the scenes at the moment at Liverpool. To get rid of Coutinho at 120 and with that money sign Keita, Fabinho and Fekir is mind-blowing business from the FSG.
Yeah.
Really top work. Jurgen Klopp must be absolutely fucking
and
delighted.
they used to be so poor, didn't they, McCubbin? Liverpool.
Yeah.
They went for a 10-15 year period and just after the turn millennium,
was
they were
great.
signing trash.
Yeah, it was great. They used to just spunk 10 million on just like also-ran players,
Yeah,
thinking,
Charlie Adam.
maybe that, Charlie Adam, Aquilani, Jan Kroenkamp, like,
Kuncevski.
maybe they'll be all right. Yeah, maybe they'll do the job. That was great. That was great. Yeah, I was just saying before how about 10 years ago I remember having a conversation with my Liverpool supporting mate, just going on about how bad their transfer policy was, and now it's now the tides have turned.
They've got a profile. It just seems it's very clinical, their business at the moment.
Dangerous.
And they're getting them for very good fees. And these are players that other top clubs will definitely be in for.
Yeah.
So Jurgen Klopp's ability to convince a player that he's part of a project and that he should come to Liverpool can't be underestimated.
For sure.
He
It's
talked his
a
way
testament
into
to his
4
charisma.
great signings.
Yeah.
McCubbin, what do you, as a Manchester United fan, let's move on to the Red Devils. What do you make of Fred for 60 and Diogo Dalot, who, I said, it sounds like a fruit machine game on Twitter, which I thought was underrated. And, thought it deserved more likes, to be honest. But
I don't know, mate. I'm still not convinced. But by the joke, I mean. Fred at 60 million euros. Obviously, I think United always have to pay a bit over the odds. If that was another club buying him, they probably would have been able to get a better deal. But I think he's a positive signing. I've not watched a whole amount of him, but from what I have seen, he's very competent on the ball. He's good at winning the ball back. I think last season he was averaging 3.3 tackles and interceptions a game, creating over a chance a game. Completing nearly 3 take-ons a game as well in the Champions League in a group which contained Napoli and Man City, with an 88% success rate as well. So I think in terms of his performances in Europe, that's pretty promising for an all-round midfielder.
Very good.
Coming to a club like Man United, which one of our problems last season was definitely winning the midfield battle and being able to surpass the press, just having that composure in midfield. I think we did lack a lot of time. So I think he will be a very good asset for Matic and Pogba for sure. As for Diogo Dalot, don't really know an awful lot about him. But Mourinho rates him. Mourinho rates him, and he seems to have a good character. Very good English. Was doing all the Manc phrases, wasn't he?
Yeah. Another one.
So what do you reckon, Joe?
So obviously I have seen none of Fred. I haven't watched a single Shakhtar Donetsk game. I've seen none of Diogo Dalot either. I think he's only actually made 8 first-team appearances for Porto, and they all came after January. And that was purely down to injury. But obviously Mourinho, like you said, rates him highly. And those are 2 positions we desperately needed to fill, especially in midfield. Our midfield depth is so bad, especially compared to our Premier League rivals in Man City and Liverpool. Having 4 central midfielders in McTominay, Matic, Pogba and Herrera is nowhere near good enough when you're trying to play a 4-3-3. Because I wouldn't include Mata or Lingard in there. I think they're better as the front three in a 4-3-3. So I don't really understand how only one player is going to be able to come in and fulfil that position. I think we need two central midfielders. But then again, Mourinho has massive faith in Scott McTominay, more than I do potentially. I like Scott McTominay, but I think he's a little bit limited.
For sure, I mean, he is a. I feel like he is a squad player first and foremost.
Yeah, definitely.
He's useful.
Obviously, Diogo Dalot's been brought in as cover for fullback areas. Young and Valencia getting no younger, are they? And we're going to ship our other backup fullbacks out. I think Blint's going to go back to Holland if the chat is right, or maybe to Turkey, and Darmian looks set to join either Napoli or Juventus, and he'll probably do pretty well there. And obviously Dalot played all of his games for Porto in those 8 games at left back. However, he is a right back naturally, so I think he'll probably come in and just get 20 appearances, maybe mostly off the bench.
That's
do
not
what
bad.
he can do.
That's decent. For a 19-year-old, that's very good.
Considering he's only played 400 minutes, I think, for Porto.
Yeah, I think Mourinho obviously rates him extremely highly, and there were a lot of other clubs.
Weird for Mourinho to be that like.
I was thinking as well, especially when we've got
Exuberant
someone
about a
who's so trustworthy in Valencia at right back and experienced.
I was reading actually a thread from Portugal on Twitter, who is a really good Portuguese football journalist, and he was talking about Porto would desperately trying to get his release clause, because obviously United paid over the odds of his release clause. He had a £17.5 million release clause. United paid 22 just to get him over the other clubs that wanted him from Porto. And Porto would have been desperately for like 6 months trying to increase that release clause to 60-70 million, but couldn't get him to agree to it. So United have paid over the odds to get him.
A beating off the opposition.
Yeah, there are obviously other holes though. Fred and Dalot filled 2 positions. Alderweireld is desperately needed to come in, and potentially a right winger if he doesn't ever want to play Alexis Sanchez out there. Just play Alexis Sanchez out there for sake.
Fair enough. Let's go briefly to the continent then, because I think Juventus have done some good business. Emre Can looks like he's heading over, and to get a player of his calibre on a free is very smart, very Juventus-like, you'd imagine. It'd be weird if Darmian went to Juventus, because they've got De Sciglio, haven't they, who they just signed last season, and I think they're signing Matteo Caldara as well from Atalanta, who I believe is a centre-back, but potentially can play right-back. Atalanta fans, let me know if that's wrong in the comments below. And they've also signed Douglas Costa on a permanent. So that's who springs to mind on the continent for me.
Should we just chat quickly about Wolves?
I want to just give Leicester a quick shout out as well, because I think Ricardo Pereira is fantastic business. Leicester needed to sign another right back. Danny Simpson's okay when you're playing a very narrow back four, and he works off Wes Morgan pretty well in that 18-month period, 2-year period. But we need someone with a bit more. Leicester needs someone with a bit more, who's a bit more dynamic, let's say. And Ricardo Pereira, his stats were phenomenal last season. Go and check them out. I won't bore you with them now. And Johnny Evans for £3.5 million, pretty smart. Very good. Go on then, Wolves.
Just quickly on Wolves, let's just touch on them, because they are trying to do a madness this summer. They are going to spend so much money. They've already spent £22.5 million on Bowley and Benakofobi. Like within the first 12 weeks of the... Has the transfer window even been open?
I didn't even realise.
24th of May, didn't it?
Pretty crazy. They've also managed to get Jota down to a permanent deal, so he's staying. Ruben Neves is apparently close to agreeing a new contract at the club. They've had a €40 million bid for Cancelo accepted, but the player doesn't particularly want to go to Wolves, so they're struggling a little bit in terms of agreeing personal terms.
Is pretty crucial to the Kondogbia deal as well?
No, I think Kondogbia already gone.
Separate from that?
Yeah, I think
it was a loan swap.
I think it is separate now, because I think Kondogbia is already confirmed joining, whereas Cancelo, they have agreed a deal, Wolves, and is it Valencia? Yeah, Valencia is parent club, aren't they?
40 million for Cancelo is decent. He only played 20 games.
I know, but there's like loads of political shit happening behind the scenes. They don't want to pay Jorge Mendes his £12 million agent fee in the middle of that. Jorge Mendes obviously being the middleman who wants £12 million from the deal. They don't want to pay that, so then they're holding off from the deal. The player obviously doesn't want to go to Wolves, because he's close to joining Inter Milan. So that's all kicking up a fuss.
San Siro to the Molineux.
Andre Silva is also close to joining the club, apparently. It's between them and Huddersfield to sign him. And I think Wolves are probably going to beat him out just purely based on money.
Embrace that. That'd be an exceptional signing for them. I know he's not been great at AC, but I like him.
And one more signing away from Wolves that just highlighting is that Felipe Anderson looks really close to joining West Ham. That'll probably be announced this weekend.
That'd be sick business for West Ham.
Great West Ham.
That'd be very un-West Ham business to conduct by West Ham. Obviously spent the majority of last season out, but Felipe Anderson on form. I don't think he missed a game for Lazio last season, and if he'd had another season like that, he'd be in the Brazil squad.
Again, though, the sticking point seems to be that they're close to agreeing a fee, but the player doesn't particularly play for West Ham.
Fucking horror.
So that might fall apart when it comes to agreeing personal terms. I think Wolves and West Ham doing a bit of madness business.
Fairness. That's not a word, is it? Well, it is, but it didn't make sense then. Who do you think is the best bit of transfer business before the World Cup, though? Let us know in the comments below. And, quality of comment. Give you a reason why as well.
It's obviously Fekir.
Chat. So that was Continental Club for this week, guys. Thank you for watching. Get your thoughts in the comments below. Get your questions for next week at us on Twitter and Instagram. Guys, what else is happening on Football Daily Joe?
VFN is live today. Jave Jackson's back from his 15-week sabbatical.
Jave Jackson is back. Michael McCubbin.
Indeed.
Eurofootball Daily.
Eurofootball Daily. We've got Stat Wars from the weekend. Stat Wars coming up tomorrow. Dave Jackson on that as well, I believe.
He's everywhere.
Right? He is everywhere at the moment. And also FDFC latest non-league vlog was out on Tuesday, so go check that out. Probably our best one yet, actually. So even more of a incentive to go.
And someone said in the comments on that, FD's hidden gem.
Yeah, mate.
Scout report. If FD did a scout report on Football Daily properties,
that'd
be number one.
Well, cheers, boys.